The administration and leaders in the community say they expect the contract worker cap will be reached this year, as the numbers are already close and it's only 5 months into the year. The Department of Labor Secretary Edith Leon Guerrero says as of May 10th, there's a total of 10,794 beneficiaries of CW visas, meaning only 2,205 are left in this year, with 7 months to go in 2016. One member of the private sector tells us the concerns about the cap are why the CNMI Strategic Economic Development Council is actively having a conversation to look at the possibility of lobbying for a greater number in the workforce. It's critical to extend the program, the member tells us. Congressman Gregorio Kilili Sablan, in his newsletter released just last week, recognizes an extension will require, quote, an act of Congress and will not be easy to achieve, end quote. But he says if the Commonwealth can find an agreement on the issue, then it will be easier to persuade Congress it is necessary. The cap last year in 2015 was set at 13,999, and it was not reached. Total beneficiaries hit 9,609 that year. But this year paints a slightly different picture. The Secretary of Labor says, quote, it is very apparent that the current numbers will more likely than not exceed the allowable cap of 12,999, an indication of demand for more workers to populate the workforce pipeline for the growing private sector industry, where most of the projects are taking place on the island of Saipan, not taking into account the islands of Rota and Tinian, end quote. KSPN reported last week the CNMI Strategic Economic Development Council voted to recommend to Governor Ralph Torres a new cap of 18,000 contract workers for the Commonwealth based on the anticipated new development. We learned the discussion surrounding that number first suggested asking for a cap for 15,000 workers for Saipan and to set aside requests for Tinian and Rota, but the group decided to lump the requested caps together for the entire CNMI. De Leon Guerrero points to more than just new development, but also existing business expansions, as she says they are, quote, also part of the anticipation as they respond to the growing need to provide the necessary services to the growing economic development projects, end quote. If an extension is approved, the cap would be reviewed by the U.S. Secretary of Labor every few years thereafter. If it's deemed the economy needs more of a workforce beyond a 10-year extension, then there would be a recommendation for the subsequent 5 years. This according to a member of the private business sector.